Moscow, Idaho, a town of just 25,000 people, tucked into the rolling hills of the Palouse, known more for wheat fields and football games than for fear. It's the kind of place where doors stay unlocked, where neighbors wave, and the biggest crime is usually a stolen bike. But in November 2022, everything changed. 4 college students, full of life, laughter, and plans for the future, were brutally murdered in their sleep. In a small yellow house on 1122 King Road, what should have been just another quiet Sunday morning became a scene of unimaginable horror. No one knew it yet, but a killer had walked through the darkness, climbed the stairs, and left 4 young people lifeless, and then vanished. It was just past 11 a.m. on November 13th, 2022, when the call came in. A 911 dispatcher answered a frantic, incoherent voice. Someone wasn't waking up. Blood was everywhere. There were multiple victims. Police arrived at the house on King Road, a 3-story off-campus home popular with students. What they found inside would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Kaylee Goncalves, 21, Madison Mogen, 21, Xana Kernodle, 20, Ethan Chapin, 20, all stabbed to death in the middle of the night. No sign of forced entry, no weapon, no suspect. 2 surviving roommates had slept through the attack. The questions began instantly. Why were they killed? Who could have done it? And how had the killer walked in and out without anyone seeing a thing? We talk about the crime, we have to talk about the victims, because they weren't just names on headlines. They were people, with lives, with dreams. Kaylee Goncalves was the firecracker. Funny, loud, fiercely loyal. She had just bought a new Range Rover and was weeks away from graduating. Madison Mogen, her best friend since 6th grade. The quieter one, grounded, warm. The 2 were inseparable. They even died in the same bed. Xana Kernodle was a fighter, full of energy, humor, and strength. She was studying marketing and was madly in love with her boyfriend. Ethan Chapin, a triplet, a gentle giant. He was studying recreation and had the biggest heart. They were all students at the University of Idaho. They had spent the night laughing, eating, partying, doing what students do. And then, before dawn, they were gone. Inside 1122 King Road, the layout of the house was unusual. 3 levels, 6 bedrooms. 2 survivors on the ground floor, untouched, unaware. The killer entered through a sliding glass door on the 2nd floor. He moved fast, silently. He stabbed Xana and Ethan first, both on the 2nd floor, then climbs the narrow stairs to the 3rd floor where Kaylee and Madison were sleeping in the same bed. Each attack was calculated, controlled, brutal. No valuables were taken, no obvious signs of struggle, except in Xana's room. She fought back. One clue was left behind, a knife sheath beside Madison's body. And on that sheath was a single trace of DNA. It would take weeks and cutting-edge forensic technology to match it. But the moment police found it, they knew they had a trail. Word spread fast. By the afternoon of November 13th, the University of Idaho campus was in shock. Classes were canceled. Memorials appeared on sidewalks. Students left town in fear. Police held press conferences, but gave little information. They said it was a targeted attack, but wouldn't say why. They said the public wasn't in danger, but wouldn't explain how. Speculation exploded. Podcasts, YouTubers, TikToks, everyone had a theory. Was it a stalker? A jealous ex? A random drifter? Meanwhile, the families begged for answers. And the killer? Still out there, watching, waiting. Behind the scenes, detectives were already piecing together the impossible. No witnesses, no weapon. A crime scene that looked professional, almost too clean. But then came the clue. That knife sheath found next to Madison Mogen, it wasn't just any sheath. It was U.S. military standard, K-bar style, black, leather, and on the snap button of the sheath was a partial male DNA profile. Still, it wasn't in any criminal database. No name, no face, just a thread. One fragile thread. Police pulled phone records, security camera footage, traffic cams. They started to notice something odd. A white Hyundai Elantra spotted multiple times near the house around 4 a.m. That car would change everything. The footage was grainy. No license plate, just a white Hyundai Elantra driving through the King Road neighborhood at least 4 times before the murders, then speeding away at 4:20 a.m. Police quietly released the vehicle description. Thousands of tips poured in. Hundreds of Elantras were reviewed across multiple states. And then, in Pullman, Washington, just 10 miles from Moscow, they found one. Registered to a 28-year-old PhD criminology student at Washington State University. His name was Bryan Christopher Kohberger. Kohberger wasn't just a student. He was studying criminal justice and criminology. His classmates described him as quiet, intense, socially awkward. He'd once asked classmates how to commit the perfect crime. He had posted strange questions on Reddit, asking ex-cons how they felt after committing violent crimes. He was obsessed with serial killers, but no one thought he could be one. His background showed no criminal history, but something about him felt off. And when investigators compared his car, his phone records, and his route on the night of the murders, they found a disturbing overlap. Police needed to be sure. They began tracking Kohberger in secret. They followed him across the country as he drove home to Pennsylvania for winter break. They retrieved trash from his family's house. Inside the garbage, a discarded napkin with DNA. They tested it, and the results came back. The DNA on the knife sheath was a 99.9998% match to the biological son of the man in the trash. They had their man, and they moved fast. On December 30th, 2022, FBI agents and local police stormed a suburban house in the Poconos. Kohberger was arrested in the middle of the night. He didn't resist. He was wearing surgical gloves, and in his possession, a black face mask, a knife, and a phone that had been turned off during the exact window of the murders. News of the arrest exploded across the globe. A criminology student, a man who studied killers, had become one. The families of the victims were stunned. Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalves, told reporters, "We knew someone was out there watching. Now we know who." Kohberger was extradited back to Idaho. His mugshot showed a gaunt, stone-faced man with hollow eyes. He said nothing. He pleaded not guilty. The surviving roommates, the town of Moscow, the entire country, waited to hear why. But no motive was ever revealed. Just the silence of a man who had spent years studying violence and one night crossed the line into it. Bryan Kohberger wasn't a drifter. He wasn't a stranger to law enforcement. He was someone who studied criminal behavior for years. He had a master's in criminal justice. He was pursuing a PhD in criminology. He even graded papers on serial killers, while allegedly planning a quadruple murder. But he wasn't brilliant. He made mistakes. His phone pinged near the King Road house 12 times before the murders, suggesting he had stalked the victims in the weeks prior. Investigators believe he targeted them, especially Kaylee Goncalves, who may have noticed someone following her in the months before. Was it fantasy? Was it rage? Was it the need to finally live what he had only studied? We still don't know, and maybe we never will.
As Kohberger sat in jail, the four families began to speak publicly. Their voices were broken, but their message was clear. We will not stop until there is justice. Kaylee's father, Steve, became a powerful advocate for transparency in the investigation. He demanded updates. He demanded answers. He became the public face of grief and determination. Madison's family remembered her laughter. Xana's family clung to memories of her kindness. Ethan's family created a foundation in his name. This wasn't just about catching a killer. It was about honoring the lives that were stolen and making sure their names were never forgotten. Kohberger appeared in court in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, expressionless. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He waived his right to a speedy trial. He entered a not guilty plea.
The defense argued that DNA could be transferred, that the sheath may not prove intent, that surveillance footage didn't prove motive. The prosecution stayed quiet. They had time, they had evidence, and they had the families, watching every moment from the gallery. The trial was set for October 2023, but it would be delayed, again and again. The courtroom became a battleground. Kohberger's lawyers filed motion after motion, suppress the DNA evidence, exclude the cell phone data, argue that the grand jury was flawed. Meanwhile, prosecutors revealed new details. The suspect had stalked the area weeks before. He turned his phone off during the time of the murders. He returned to the crime scene hours later to possibly relive it. The prosecution hinted at a possible death penalty case. The defense, however, claimed he was being framed by circumstantial evidence. And while legal teams battled behind closed doors, the town of Moscow and the world waited. In June 2025, after nearly 3 years of legal back and forth, a decision came. Bryan Kohberger would avoid the death penalty. In a surprise move, he accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty to all 4 murders. In exchange, he would serve 4 consecutive life sentences, with no chance of parole. The courtroom was silent as victim impact statements were read aloud. Tears, anger, silence. Kaylee's father stared straight at Kohberger. Xana's mother could barely speak. Ethan's siblings sobbed quietly in the back row. Kohberger never looked up. He never explained why. He simply agreed to disappear behind prison walls, forever. Moscow, Idaho was never the same. In the months after the murders, the small college town became a national symbol of tragedy, but also of resilience. Candlelight vigils filled the university lawn. Professors, students, and parents gathered to honor the 4 lives taken. Scholarships were created in their names. Art installations appeared across campus. A memorial bench was placed near the administration building, 4 stars carved into the stone. Slowly, students returned, classes resumed, but safety would never be taken for granted again. The town learned to live with the memory and the fear of what had happened at 1122 King Road. Even after the plea deal, questions linger.
Why that house? Why those students? Why that night?
Investigators believe Kohberger had visited the King Road home multiple times before the murders. Some theorize he followed one of the girls on social media. Others believe he simply fixated on the house and became obsessed. But Kohberger never confessed, never gave a motive, never explained the horror he inflicted. The silence was louder than any answer. And for the victims' families, that silence may be the hardest part to live with. In late 2023, the University of Idaho made a difficult decision. 1122 King Road would be demolished. The house had become a site of curiosity, grief, and trauma. It no longer felt like a home. It was a wound that couldn't heal while it stood. On a quiet morning, bulldozers arrived. In less than a day, the house where 4 young lives were stolen was gone. All that remained was an empty lot, a space where something beautiful might one day grow. But the memories, they lingered in every brick, every window, every silent step on those stairs. The story of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan didn't end in that house. Their families refused to let them become just statistics. They created foundations in their names, launched campaigns to improve campus safety, funded programs for victims of violent crime. Their photos now hang in classrooms, sorority houses, gymnasiums. Their names are read at vigils across the country. They were more than victims. They were friends, students, children. They laughed, they danced, they dreamed, and now they inspire. 4 lives ended in a single night. A town was shattered, a nation watched in horror. But out of the darkness came something powerful: truth, justice, unity. Bryan Kohberger may have planned every detail of that night, but he couldn't plan what came after. The world saw through his silence. The law caught up to his cruelty, and the names of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan will forever outshine the man who tried to erase them. This was the story of a crime that shattered a town and the people who refused to let it break them. Like, share, and comment to keep their story alive. Subscribe for more real crime cases told with care. You've heard the truth. Now it's your turn. Like the video, share the story, and tell us what you think below. Together, we give voice to victims. Like, share, and join the conversation in the comments. Your voice matters.